Yeah. No?
Do I need to come back up there?
Maybe. Maybe. All right. Can we pray before I get started? Father, I just come to you tonight, and I thank you for allowing us to gather together tonight, be able to come here and praise you and worship you and seek out our own selves, Lord, to just further heal ourselves of anything that has come across. And Father, I just ask that your presence just come down here tonight, just a presence of peace, presence of grace. Just come into this place, Lord, tonight, and just keep myself and anyone else here just calm and just comforted through this whole testimony I'm going to share tonight. And I thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
As I said, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I still struggle with anger, stress, self-worth. I've been delivered from alcohol for 2 years now. My name's David. My life verse, 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. October 6, 1977. That was the day I came into the world to my parents, David and Becky Burnett. I'm the second born of 5 kids. I started my life in a small mining town in Indiana named Clinton. It was a town full of bars and illegal gambling. As far back as I can remember, I was in those bars with my dad, seeing what goes on with that lifestyle. Most of the time, this would end up me falling asleep on a table from being out too late. And Dad took me because he knew Mom wouldn't leave him without taking me too. I remember him carrying me into the house, tossing me on the couch or chair, yelling at Mom. I can remember watching him beat on her, throw things at her, and cuss at her. When I was around 3 years old, he started hitting on me also. He would take full beer cans and smash them into my sides. He used to take sticks and hit me with them too. It only happened when he was drunk. He was a totally different person early in the day, before that first can was opened. Like he was sorry for what he had done, but he didn't know how to reverse it. So he would drink more to cover it up. That's what it seemed to me. I say this part because I can now relate with drinking to cover up hurt. He had been enlisted in the Marine Corps for several years, and being tired of the same old stuff every day, he got the bright idea that we would just up and move with no forwarding address. Yep, he went AWOL. For the next 2 years we ran and we ran. We lived out of our vehicle. He would work at apartment complexes as we traveled for free room and little pay for food and gas. We never unpacked the car. Mom would every morning get the change of clothes we needed for the day and take the dirty back to the car. The MPs always seemed to find us. They never caught us because they would always call ahead to where we were to make sure it was us. And then as soon as the phone would hang up, Dad would get contacted from the management, and off we would be again. This went on until his dad passed away in Indiana. He left us, my mom, my older sister, myself, and now 2 more siblings, in a trailer park in Katy, Texas, with little food while he went back to Indiana to be with family. A short time later, he came back in a small U-Haul truck. We packed up the few things that we had had. We went back to Indiana, where we moved in with my grandma. We gained some freedom by doing this, and after 2 years of running, the MPs stopped coming. Dad continued to go to bars daily. My aunt and my mom came up with a plan, and on July 4th, 1985, we went to a party with my aunt, and we never came home. Again on the run, but this time from my dad. We jumped from state to state, keeping from him finally stopping at his mom's, where he wouldn't think to look for us in Virginia. He contacted his mom, said that he was done looking for us, and that he was coming to live with her. We took the long way around and came back to Indiana, so not to meet him on the road somewhere. I was 19 the next time I saw him. He was the one thing I knew I didn't want to become in life. We began settling in the best we could. Mom got a job and found a cheap house. She worked long hours at a sewing factory, which left my older sister and I to raise the younger 2. There were many different relationships my mom had in a short time, with one leading to marriage and another sibling with a guy that didn't want kids to start with. My oldest sister was kicked out of the house at the age of almost 13. She had to go live with my grandma in Virginia. I spent the next 3 years grounded due to not meeting the standards in school or in anything else of this man. I was hurt that my sister was no longer with us, and that I didn't feel good enough, that I was good enough. My mom divorced him before he could kick me out next. I had a lot of hurt built up inside and in many different areas of my life. And when I got to middle school, my attitude and my temper were really bad. And not knowing how to deal with it, I fought, and I fought a lot for any reason at all. My mom had started dating another guy, and because of my past experiences with the guys, I had no use for him at all. We butted heads a lot, which for a while turned into his anger landing on me. That would throw me into flashbacks of staying down until my freshman year, when I realized I was just as big as he was. And the next time I didn't go down, and I came back one time and it was over. Never again did he and I have confrontations like that. I left home my freshman year, moved in with a senior friend of mine, who we both had the same reputation and tempers. We focused on sports, working out, drinking, and finding a fight every weekend. Yes, at 14, I started becoming the guy that I didn't want to be, and hadn't even realized it at that point. The beginning of my sophomore year, I moved back home, stopped drinking. I decided I needed to focus on sports if I was going to go anywhere in life. My years from 6th grade to the beginning of my junior year consisted of working in cornfields and hayfields through the summer, football in the fall, conditioning all winter, track and field in the spring. I had a goal to get out of that town. The beginning of my junior year, I was on the practice field, and this great big friend of mine was standing next to me. We were waiting for our turn to go onto the field. And I hear him say, "Oh, David, this ain't good." I look over and here comes my girlfriend, her mom and stepdad, and my mom and stepdad. Yup, it doesn't look good. Well, if I hadn't had my chin strap on, my jaw would have hit the ground when they told me I was going to be a dad. I finished that year of football while starting work at a local grocery store. And making sure that I could still run track. I was positive I was going to be able to finish out my senior year with my sports also and stay on goal, but that didn't happen. April 28th, 1985, my son was born. I wanted so bad to go to school that day, and that was, as far as I can recall, that was the only day I ever wanted to go to school. I moved in with her and her family, but still continuing to go as I wanted, out with my friends, after work, and any chance I got, really. I started up drinking and fighting again. Through all of this, I had been being watched from middle school by a man named Terry. I didn't know it at this time, but God had placed him in my life. Through my senior year, he started to really indirectly direct my path through his son, who was my best friend. He had a pretty good feel for me by the end of the year. And at graduation, when it was over, he walked up to Rob and I and said, "Boys, have a good weekend. I'll see you at 7 o'clock Monday morning." Yeah, these two guys that barely got out of school now have full-time construction jobs. After several conversations with me from him and me realizing he wasn't going anywhere nor letting me go, I gave him all the respect I could. I had learned so much from him that I still carry with me today. Through listening to him, I started attending church for the first time since I was still living at home. On April 17th, 2003, I accepted Jesus into my life. It was a full feeling that I had never experienced before. I now have 3 kids and a wife. The marriage was a mess before it even started. We got married because, coming from broken families ourselves, we thought that we would do the right thing and make the family work. Pornography was introduced into the relationship. That only helped the downward spiral go faster. Pornography only showed what false relationships are and not what God intended a man and woman's relationship to be like. All worth of either of us and what relationship we had was only going negatively the further the pornography venture went. We didn't respect each other at all anymore, period. We decided to divorce. I finally came around to focus on my kids and myself. They were with me everywhere I could go if I had the opportunity to get them. Just like in anything, there's always a first. Thanksgiving of 2008. This was the first Thanksgiving separated, and the first one I had gone to in years due to always working. It was being held at my sister's house, and I agreed to come with the kids. It was this day that changed my life from that point. This is the day that I met Emily. My kids had already met her because her and my sister were best friends. I had heard about her and her daughters, but that was it. That afternoon when we met, sparks flew everywhere. Everyone in the room seen it. I didn't see her again for another month. Christmas Eve, I took the kids to their mom, and I was alone for my first Christmas Eve and what was going to be Christmas morning. I went to the gas station and ran into an old friend from school. She told me she got off in a few hours and I should come back and pick her up. Okay, so what's a guy to do that hasn't been out there in the dating world for so long, but to call his mom? Yeah, I did it. I called her. Told her what was going on. She replied to me, I don't think that's a good idea. Why don't you come over here to your sister's? We're playing cards and having a few drinks. I agreed. Stopped, picked up my drink of choice and headed over. And to my surprise, when I got there sat Emily. Insert lump in throat and nerves of steel now bouncing all over the place. We spent that evening together, and it didn't take long before I knew this was the woman. This woman is the one God had sent for me. I asked her to marry me, and on May 23rd, 2009, we were on a plane headed to Cabo, Mexico, to get married on the beach at sunset. It was an eventful week. A country boy in a different country with a lady way out of my league. We came home to a now family of 5 kids. I was farming long hours at the time, and I was rarely home. She got married to become a single mom of 5. We found out a month later we were pregnant, and it turned into a miscarriage. That was tough on both of us. Then God blessed us with another pregnancy in November, which was a rough one. Morning sickness, all-day sickness, sickness of certain smells, sickness of smells being cooked, which is where I started reevaluating our relationship because bacon was making her feel sick. I wasn't sure if this was right. But we pulled through, and on July 29th, 2010, we were blessed with a healthy baby boy. In July 2011, we moved into our new house that we were buying. Finally, something to show for payments being put out rather than renting. We were making this house our home with memories. On April 12th, 2013, I woke up to a thump from down the hall, and our home was on fire. I woke Emily to get the kids out. I looked into the closet where the fire was at, and there was nothing I could do to stop the fire. The gas line to the water heater and the furnace were engulfed, and they were moving on their own. I tried finding my dog that was in a kennel. He was a deaf dog, so it wasn't like I could call out to him, but the smoke was too bad, and I was making the way to the side door. Before I made it out the door, the gas line blew and lit up the whole room I just walked out of. It was a complete loss, of material things and our dog, but we were safe. The insurance paid the house off, and we moved into a rental and began drinking heavy again. We purchased a camper and spent a lot of time out traveling and at local campgrounds every weekend that we were home. The drinking didn't slow down. If anything, it increased as time went on, and trying to cover up all the pain of all we had lost, and it had helped give false picture to others of how well we were handling things. The kids, sometime during the summer, said all they wanted was to be back in our house for Christmas. The insurance company totaled the house, but the structure was still sound. We discussed it, and in September made the decision to sell everything we could and put towards rebuilding the house. We moved our camper to the driveway, and the demo began. It was long days at my job, then home to work on the house. And then there was no such thing as a weekend. I had a deadline to hit for my family. On Christmas Eve, we moved back into the house. It wasn't done, but it was livable. We were starting our home again. 2 weeks later, a big snowstorm moved in on a Sunday. I had to go to work on Monday and plow snow at the farm. That afternoon, I slipped off the bottom step of my tractor, jamming my heels into the concrete, brushing it off, and just going on for the day. The next morning, I couldn't get out of bed without help. Also had to have help getting dressed. This was the start of a new normal for the next 2.5 years. A herniated 2 disc in my lower back and a work comp case began. They drug it out, and 87 days into it, they approved the surgery and now a spinal fusion due to the herniation rupturing and laying on the nerve that controlled my left leg and foot. The fusion happened, still on 22 pain pills a day after the surgery. I was still not able to function. Now a spinal stimulator was implanted in my back. This was the biggest relief I had experienced yet from the pain. Moving forward, I had to go to occupational therapy testing to see what level I would be able to return back to work. I thought I was doing good, and when it was over, I found out I didn't even complete phase 1 of a 3-phase process. I was crushed. Going from a guy that if my arms went around it, I was moving it, and now deemed permanently disabled. Telling me that I would never work again, and I was supposed to just accept the new reality. I was so angry. They finally closed the comp case after that test, and we tried moving on with our lives and with this new unknown. We sold our house and purchased a new one with 9 acres and a pond. It was an old farmhouse that needed updating, but it was a place that I had always dreamt of. And Terry, the man that watched over me in high school, the man that I called Dad for many, many years, he had moved to Florida at this point, and his health was going down quickly. I had came to visit him, and while I was here, I realized that I didn't hurt and that I was functioning much better. I actually forgot to take a dose of my pain meds because I felt so good. And after taking care of me now for almost the past 3 years, dressing me, putting my shoes on, basically whatever I needed, Emily knew what my limitations were, and called to check on me. It was our first time not together since I had gotten hurt, and she was worried about how I would be. I told her how great I felt, and her reply was, "I'm not moving to Florida. Snakes, gators, hot, I'm out." A couple more trips down to see Dad, and he passed away in the beginning of March. March 18th, I received a phone call from a man in Florida wanting to hire me over the phone, unseen. I accepted the job. We put the house up for sale and I moved to Florida April 1st. Emily stayed in Illinois with the kids so they could finish that school year. April 3rd was my first day of work. I was staying in a camper, and it was very hard being away from my wife and family for 8 weeks. Work started out what it was supposed to be, but after my family got to Florida, things changed. Over time, I was becoming required, and I was falling back into my old work habits. We were getting plugged into church, going regularly, and being involved with our youth group. Even with getting plugged into church, I still had an addiction that I couldn't shake, and at that time didn't even see that it was an issue. I was that guy. The one who went to church on Sunday morning, and when I went home, was sitting on the grill with a beer in my hand that afternoon. And it wasn't just one or two, it was several, and it was every day. Then one morning during church service, Pastor Scott announced a new ministry called Celebrate Recovery that was coming, but needed volunteers to get it up and running. God flipped that switch on. Sign me up. I'm going to take a couple classes and go out and help people.
Yep.
That didn't happen. Well, after the first couple classes, I realized I was messed up and in no condition to help anyone, including myself. Work was expecting way more of me than what I was being paid for. And I did it, but it was also taking away from church and family time. As I went on, things got tight at home, but God was lining things up. We started side work, and it started consuming us. And it was time to figure out what to do. Become self-employed or keep busting my butt to barely get by for somebody else. God led us in the direction to go out on our own, doing home renovations. We have been blessed with work since, and never looking for any work, and always booked way ahead. Also, from His provisions, this has allowed us the flexibility to continue with this ministry that would have not been possible with my previous employment. Celebrate Recovery has given me a family that I can say I honestly love and wouldn't trade for anything. We are all from different walks of life, but that's what God intended. Through God, Celebrate Recovery, and the support of Celebrate Recovery family, I have worked and continue to work my steps and focus on the 8 principles. When struggling, it never fails. I'll get a phone call to help pull me through whatever it is. I know God is always in control, but in times like that, it's His little God wink to me saying, I'm still here. I'm now 2 years sober, On July 4th, 2018, I stopped drinking. I turned it over to God, and He took it away completely. God has helped me grow so much over the past 2.5 years of my recovery. My dad and I have had conversations. My dad and I have had the conversation that we both needed to have after many years of myself holding grudges and pain. And continue to grow daily, not missing a day of checking on each other and moving forward, not focusing on the past. And looking for the day that I'll make the trip up with my family so he can meet them. Last Thanksgiving, I texted him, not knowing why, but we haven't missed a day of talking since. I've tried having conversations with my mom, and I can only say this because I myself have been there, but when someone is in denial, they won't hear what you're saying. I have said what I needed to her. And just like it is stated, we're not responsible for the actions of others. All we can do is our part in our recovery. I had a lot of pain build up towards my stepdad of what our relationship started out as. And then the pride I had that kept him closed out of my life as I was growing up. I never gave him the chance to help me grow up. And until the beginning of 2020, we would speak to each other, but never had a relationship. I would speak out of respect before, but now, when I see him, it's because I want to speak to him. This relationship is growing as time goes by also. Slower than I would like, but it's all in God's timing, not mine. There are several people I have had to reach out to and apologize to for how I had treated them in school or at parties that I had attended. Then there were others that I had never knew, but did harm to for several different reasons, like being different than I was, or I was asked to, or some instances I was even paid to. These are the people I had to speak out to God and give it to Him to heal. I'm not that person any longer, and I'm so happy for that. God has definitely softened my heart very much. I was the guy that didn't cry about anything. I didn't care how bad I made others feel. Before I go to this next part, has everybody seen Frozen 2?
Yes.
Alright, okay. No? Oh man. I've got to move forward though, I'm sorry. Yeah, now I get choked up at Frozen 2. I mean, we watched it and I got this lump. I'm like, Olaf, what just happened to Olaf? He's my man. But yeah, that seriously happened. Now I catch myself getting choked up at movies. I would have never done that in the past. I had walls built up that no one could ever get through. And that's exactly what happened. No one did. But God busted them all down. The man I call my brother, my best friend through high school, Rob, through our differences, we've had a chance to talk now. It's going to be a long time before this relationship will ever be what it was, or if it ever will be. But the pain and anger of losing his dad, who acted as my father figure growing up, and then me going into recovery over my alcoholism. That was enough to throw a lot of division between us. He didn't understand why I distanced myself and was mad. But was mad about it, that when he said he needed me with him like I had always been before, I was nowhere to be found. He now knows I couldn't be around the drinking and didn't leave him to hurt him. We were always side by side through everything, and then without explanation, I just left. I've attempted to make amends with my ex-wife. She wasn't ready to receive that. And again, God reminded me, I'm only responsible for my recovery. I have to offer forgiveness and give forgiveness, and He will take care of the rest. There is still a lot of hurt in my kids through the divorce and my actions afterwards for many years. This is an area that I'm still being worked on how to make things right with them and in God's timing, not mine. As much as I have failed them, and I'm sure I will somehow again, I'm just trying to do the next right thing every day, step by step. And to the person who's been there for me since the first time we met in 2008, the person I lied to, I've not loved her the way that she should have been loved. And even the ways that I've made her feel like I've abandoned her at points. Never being home, being there for her when she needed me. Or I'm even sure more than I'm not even aware of. I'm still working on the communication skills with her, but still needing help in this area. The one person that I should open up to, I hesitate for whatever reason. And I believe it's still some pride that I still have because I'm the husband and provider, and I'm supposed to be able to handle everything and not put things on her plate that she already has a full plate of for her to worry about. But through writing this testimony out, I have come to realize this hang-up. I have come to realize this hang-up now. It's time to hit it head on with the person that God has designed for me to walk through life with, not apart from. And until I deal with this, it's a connection that we will not be able to have and share. I have said it before and I will continue to say it. Just because I'm a Celebrate Recovery leader does not mean that I don't have struggles. I am no different than anyone else as far as hurts, habits, and hang-ups. I have just chosen to face them, work them, and get through them with Christ on a daily basis. I would like to tell you all that whether it's your first time here tonight or a long-time comer, you're part of my family. You may not understand how I can say this, and not knowing you, but I will say keep coming back and go through this program. And you will understand and also be able to say the same thing honestly. God bless you all. And the ministry of Celebrate Recovery. Thank you for letting me share.